Chief doesn't have to be here. I can start. Good afternoon. Today is Monday, December 11th, 2017. This is a special meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good afternoon. Let the record reflect Commissioners Soboroff, Johnson, and Goldsmith are present, and we have a quorum. Number one on the agenda is public comment period. This is general public comment. We have 10 comment cards.
Okay.
The first three, Jamie Garcia, Taylor Gates, and Jed Perriott.
Good afternoon.
So, I'm assuming this is not going to be the last Police Commission meeting of the year because we still have next Tuesday and then the other two kind of fall near holidays. I wanted to start to just reflect on what kind of fight we've been in the last year, really honoring the community that's here, and really turning my back on this rubber stamp body that is called the Police Commission, how they constantly just approve of a very, very violent force in our community that's not only murdering us in the streets, but is starving us of resources. And I realize that that starvation is probably one of the most violent pieces of this institution. And I realize too, just kind of looking up there and how they have their heads down, how they constantly ignore us, that they don't really care because this Christmas, these past holidays, they're probably enjoying their warm houses, their warm food, their families are around, and they're not really feeling the impacts of what it's like to have one of your loved ones murdered by law enforcement, or to have one of your loved ones locked away indefinitely in prison for for things that we try to justify in this world that are reasons why we put people in cages. And this institution essentially is what drives people into cages. And these people sit up here and that they are complicit in believing that this is the way that the world should operate, that people get better in cages, that somehow being put in a cage is somehow going to make things better in the world. And I'm just really proud to be a part of the community that I'm looking out into, that really believes in something different, that knows that we deserve housing, that knows we deserve green spaces, schools, healthcare, to make us well, to make us whole. And I'm really glad to be a part of this community that's fighting, and I'm really glad to be not one of these people.
Next speaker, please.
Taylor Gates.
Good afternoon, sir. Oh, sorry, wait. We'll start your time over. Okay.
You are a corrupt man, and I hope you enjoy your $50 million Whole Foods development in Malibu. You employ scare tactics in the police commission meetings. You conspire to silence innocent members of the public like Akili, who have done more for their local community than you will ever do. How can you talk about solving homelessness when you are so clearly motivated by profit and self-interest? You are completely supportive of and aligned with state-sanctioned murder. Let it be known that your fascist behavior will not be forgotten. I reject the fallacious narrative of justice that you serve. Are you really afraid of a fucking notebook? You are a criminal, and this will be your legacy. Murder, rape, corruption, theft, misogyny, anti-blackness, displacement, crypto-genocide. And this is how you will be remembered. This is who you are.
Thank you, Jed Perriott.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
So I say that the spirit of Baba Akili is with us today, and will always be with us. I'm here because I couldn't make it last week to talk about the homeless, the HOPE teams you guys were reporting on, because on my way here I noticed a police sweep of the homeless just down the way on Broadway by the Alvaro Street. And I found out that apparently Gloria Molina, who is a former council member, had been complaining that the homeless were making too much noise during one of her fancy gala events at the La Plaza Museum. And she demanded more sweeps. And talking to the individuals who live at that encampment, many of them sober, one, a young woman trying to finish nursing school, has so many outstanding tickets for her tent being up after 6 a.m. that she may have to drop out of school. And yet here you are, Mitch Englander, writing his article in the Daily News about the homeless are all criminals addicted to drugs. They all need to be thrown into underpasses or Skid Row or jail or in graves. And about how your Hope outreach teams are a more humane way to do outreach for the homeless. Yet I have been monitoring these teams out in the streets. There is nothing hopeful about these Hope teams. The mere sight of a police uniform to an unhoused person, especially an unhoused person of color, is traumatic. And the stories that come from these individuals about this simple sweep that you guys think is cleaning debris, getting unwanted trash out of the way. Let me tell you what happens in a sweep. Let me tell you about the violence of a police sweep, the death that can come from a police sweep. A gentleman I spoke to had his medicine discarded, his painkillers, by a police sweep. He pleaded with them not to throw it out, but they did anyway. This led him to resort to doing street heroin for a painkiller, the only thing available to him without health insurance, which then led, a month later, another police sweep, to the police charging him with drug possession, which then led to him losing his food stamp benefits. Outrageous, disgusting. The police have no business in doing homeless outreach. You have no business existing.
Thank you. The next three speakers, please.
Yeah, if you want to give the whole speech again, go ahead. I'll do it again? Yeah, come on. Go ahead. We're not going to be accepting any speaker cards once public comment has begun. So public comment began before, but that's what I was trying to clarify with the city attorney. So if you want to give your speech again, go ahead.
Great. So let's continue talking about your ongoing colonial occupation and poverty governance that you are here to continue. Yeah. Oh, here he is. Okay, great. Like we can tell Charlie Beck how great his Hope teams are out there.
So Professor Abdullah, this is your last warning. There will be no disruption of the meeting. If you disrupt the meeting again, I'll ask you to leave. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Charlie Beck. I'm here speaking about the Hope teams that I was unfortunately unable to attend last week because I noticed a police sweep down the way that apparently Gloria Molina has been requesting that the homeless be thrown out, banished from the city, just like you're doing across this whole city in your attempt to cleanse the city core of low-income people of color. Anybody that does not have money, that cannot own property, and you're assisting in these gentrification efforts. It is an utter disaster, the idea that police would be social workers when the mere sight of their uniforms and weapons are traumatizing to those who have to live on the street. Many who are evicted recently because of our horrific housing policies, our free market housing and healthcare policies. These are not all drug addicts and criminals. In fact, most of the ones I meet who are unfortunately addicted to substances are doing so because they went homeless, not the other way around. And that is shameful that public officials continue, like Joe Buscano and Mitch Englander and Mitch O'Farrell, to claim that these individuals are blight that should be removed, that should be thrown in cages or in underpasses or in graves. And this is absolutely, well, it's absurd, and I don't know how else to put it. You all don't listen. You all don't care. You think no one cares. A lot of people care. A lot of people are waking up. Your days are numbered.
Next speaker, please.
The next three speakers, Noah Shucking, Irina Martinez, and Paula Miner. Or Irina Martin.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say that I'm a college student, and we don't have a lot of time on our hands. And we see, and I know a lot of people at my school, and we want to come down here. We see what's happening in LA, and we see a lot of injustice. But with you changing the meetings up time after time, we can't come down. We are trying to make a better world in the future by getting an education. However, how can we do that when the police department's not working with us. We need the police department to work with us, work with the community to get better times so that we can come down here and try to work with you to create a better future. Because right now, you're working against us. I just want to let you know that. You're working against us, the community, and everyone in LA. Thank you.
Hey, Steve, how's the paper cut? Anyway, this monkeying around with the different times that you're trying to implement, it's not going to work. Brown Act, you guys continue to violate. Continue. It's going to stop. Waukesha Wilson, 22 minutes of the video. Do you think that just because it's only a handful of us in here, that it's not going to propel? We will seek justice for her and all the others that you guys continue to cover up for. You hear me, Steve?
Next speaker, please.
Paula Miner, followed by Tamara Case and Melina Abdullah.
It's important for us to be here. We know that just in the recent time that Steve Soboroff has become president again of LA Police Commission, most of our interaction with him is been with him trying to figure out how to get rid of us, how to not let us have any input, how to not listen, how to ignore us, how to diminish the concerns that we have. How many warnings can he give? How many people can he warn? How many people can he tell you've gone beyond 2 minutes? Not, do you have anything to say that's important, but how can I get rid of you? Just as Taylor discussed in some of his developments, the first thing is, are there any people I need to get rid of in order to flex my muscles and exercise my so-called power? We must continue to stand up. People like Steve Soboroff are the reason we have so many problems in this world today. So many problems from every level. People who disregard humans. People who think it's funny to laugh and joke while you're talking. People who think it's cute to get up or look at his computer or ignore you when you're talking. Remember that this commission could have been what it was intended to be, but under Steve Soboroff, it is our enemy. We need to think about that. I think the number of people that we get coming to meetings has increased, interestingly enough, under Steve's regime. And we will continue to bring more and more people. We will continue to seek other resources to get other support so that this commission will not continue to violate the Brown Act. This commission will not continue to manipulate times and agendas, the schedule, to see if they can prevent us from showing up. Think about this. We've already talked about the meetings not being accessible.
Next speaker, please.
And please let the record reflect Commissioner McLean Hill is now present. The next speaker, Tamara Case.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to all my relations, our ancestors, and the Spirit of God is here. And these folks here, you don't recognize that. You don't recognize our ancestors. You don't recognize the history of this land. You don't recognize the Tongva here. This is an honor to the Tongva people and the Chumash people. You don't recognize our people of color here. And you go about your business every day and you ignore us. You think that these laws that you pass and these things that you're voting on, you know, you're doing a service to the people when you're working against us. Your job is to serve and protect, yet you're taking the lives of these mothers and children and fathers out there. Think just for a minute if it was one of you. You or you or you or you or you or you or you. If that was your child or your mother or your sister or your daughter or your grandmother that faced abuse and murder, these people on the streets, unarmed people, you're disturbing, you're murdering these people. They have no cause and there's no justice. There's been no justice. There's no prosecution. Jackie Lacey's sitting up there, you know, she's a puppet of this administration. Like, you're a puppet to the service of the state, yet you don't serve the best interest of the people. Children are dying out there. They're left, these families during their holidays, think about what they're going through at this time. They don't have their grandma. They don't have their mother. They don't have their father. There's parentless children out here because of your officers of service taking their lives. This is an injustice that needs to be looked at. There needs to be reform of how you're allocating your service to the public. It is no benefit of the people right now. I'd like you all to put yourself in these families' position, please. You know, and I pray to God that your hearts and minds are transformed to do the right thing. Because what you're doing now, you're working against the people. And it's not of service of God, and it's not of service of the people. And you need to think about what you're doing and reform what you're doing here.
Melina Abdullah, followed by Hamid Khan, Aaron Meadows, and Adam Smith.
So I don't even really have much to say other than Baba Akili should be here speaking. And we know that the reason he's not here speaking is because you all conspired to get him kicked out, right? But we're all inspired to be here in his stead, right? Even when you play games like moving police commission meetings at the last minute, not notifying folks that it's gonna be moved, like having meetings at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 7:30 in the morning, right? To try and really mitigate the ability of folks to get here. And so we're here and we're gonna keep growing. One of the things that's really obvious to me is that there's a dog and pony show that happens here on Tuesdays, right? We walked in, there was one cop who was texting on her phone when we walked in, right? Now we got, 4 or 5 officers in here, but on Tuesdays, you want to surround us with officers. Why do you do that? To intimidate us? Why do you do that? It's not necessary. It's clearly not necessary. If it's not necessary today, it's not necessary on Tuesdays. He's also telling us that you can't speak once public comment starts the meeting right at 3 o'clock with public comment, right? So once the first speaker starts at 3 p.m., a time that was changed, then that means none of you are able to speak if you didn't get your card in before the first speaker comes to the podium. You're allowed to also speak on item 2. So if you have not filled out a card for item 2, I suggest that you do so. Their whole idea is that they are not beholden to us, but we're going to make them be beholden to us. And don't think that we're going to confine our actions to just this room, whether it's policed, over policed, or any other way. We're not confining our actions to here. Everything is going to be visited upon those who control us, who control this situation and try to control us. It's
Hamid Khan.
So the puppeteer has other puppets as well. We can't let Shane Goldsmith off the hook just because Steve's holding the strings. The woman who's the president of Liberty Hill Foundation, supposedly the most progressive foundation in the country. You can't let off Matt Johnson, you know, an entertainment lawyer who was the president of the police commission. So I think as this year is closing off, we need to kind of do our own inventory as well, that why we call them shock absorbers of the system, right? Starting off, not early in the year, Shane Goldsmith signed off, and we asked her, she had a meeting with us, that you signed off on this contract for $500,000 that feeds into the record management system. Did you know what you were signing on to? She goes, no, I had no idea, right? So this is how these people operate, sitting right there. Then the drone fight began. Not only that they don't know what they're signing on to, but then the hundreds of people and thousands of people come out and speak out against the program.
Go ahead.
So hundreds of people and thousands of people come out and speak out aggressively, clearly, vehemently against the use of a program that ultimately is going to surveil and murder people. They just rubber stamp it. Out of 1,100 emails, only 9 saying yes. Out of 1,675 surveys, only 97 saying yes. Still, these guys go ahead and sign on to this thing. Then let's talk about the cadet program. Let's talk about the sexual assault, domestic violence, and child abuse. We bring out a 43-year history of their sexual assault of teenagers, 14-year-old, 15-year-old. I mean, officers having orgies with 6 or 7, 16 and 15-year-old cadet programs, their own documentation, their own record. What do? They approve a $275,000 further funding for that program as well. So just let's continue. Let's talk about the expansion of the information sharing environment. They have no clue what Operation Laser is. No clue. Which is a program which is a person-based predictive policing, which traces and tracks and literally stalks people. It puts up people's faces into patrol cars, calling them chronic offender bulletin, where they may have had some past history. They are rebuilding their lives. What do? They sent SWAT to the jungles. They sent SWAT to Crenshaw District to go after people who are rebuilding their lives to spend time with their children. They go after people like Michael Bodie. They go after people like Pedro Echeverria. They go after people like Manuel. This is what they do. Last year, what else did they do? They killed teenagers. So now the question is that should we not expect anything from them? Absolutely not. We don't, right? But the reason, and I'm going to echo Paula Miner's comment, the reason we are here is that we've got to keep on exposing them. We've got to organize each other. We've got to build power. We've got to speak truth, and we've got to keep on telling us what our fight is, because we will dismantle and abolish.
Aaron Meadows and Adam Smith.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's really disappointing to see, this is my first time coming to this meeting, and it's really disappointing to see the interaction here, or the lack of interaction, and it really doesn't feel like people here are maybe even listening. And we have a problem. It's not just a problem in Los Angeles, it's a problem nationwide between low-income people and people of color and the police to protect and serve. It's on the wall right here in huge letters. But I mean, as light-skinned as I am, my experience growing up is if I saw police, I was always afraid. What's up with that? How can we change that? What are you guys doing to change what the situation is in terms of relationships between people of color and low-income people and the police? We've got to do something about that.
Adam Smith.
Good afternoon, sir.
We said fire Chief Beck. Why are we here at 3 p.m.? These meetings, regardless of what is in the agenda, should be held on a day and at a time that is accessible to a majority of working people. I realize that perhaps you all have important schedules outside of your supposed duty here, but there are 4 million people in this city, and if this commission is pretending to be one of civilian oversight, you should make sure that the people actually have the chance to come in and give comment. Also, this meeting should not be held here at police headquarters. This is like an anomaly across the country, as most people know. The fact that it is held here shows that you obviously don't want people to come. I hear you, kid. We're almost done. Anyway, I know you all have a closed session today surrounding an officer-involved shooting. As a civilian oversight board that oversees a police department that is funded by taxpayer dollars, shouldn't these meetings be made public? Shouldn't there be some kind of record that we can see as the public that you supposedly represent? If you're truly here to represent civilians, which we know you're not, but we're here to call you out. If you're truly here to represent civilians, why was the officer who had just shot and killed someone 12 days earlier back on the street to kill 14-year-old Jesse Romero? If you're truly here for the community, why were the officers that shot and murdered 20-year-old Eric Rivera back on the job shortly thereafter? The driver of that vehicle, the police vehicle that actually rolled over Eric Rivera's bullet-riddled body and pinned him down because he jumped out of the car without putting it in park first. How the fuck does that guy still have a driver's license? How is he still a cop? How are these families supposed to feel about a city that not only murders their kids, but doesn't give them justice after the murder? If you don't actually represent civilians, what are you doing? You're criminalizing Greg Achilles' notebook. Criminalize.
Thank you.
And we have no other comment cards on this item, sir?
Okay, let's move to, go ahead. 2A.
We're at item number 2. We have 5 public comment cards,
5 cards, okay.
and this is officer-involved shooting. The first 3 speakers, Jed Perriott, Mr. Novick, and Michael Williams.
I handed my card in, so he hasn't started speaking yet.
I'd like to know more information about this before giving microphone. Hello? I'd rather give my comment after I know more information about this case. You just threw this at us, but that's very typical, isn't it? No oversight. This is just a rubber stamp body, as Hamikam would say. And once again, what are you trying to hide here? Now I'm really angry because I want some answers, and I'm here giving public comment about something that I don't know enough about, and I don't understand why you're giving public comment before you're making the ruling, before you're presenting the information. Why are you doing this? Because you don't want us to call you out? The answer is yes, right? The answer is yes. And once again, the LAPD continues to be exactly what they were created as since the end of slavery, which is a colonial occupying force of communities of color, slave patrols. And they essentially are continuing that legacy, continuing to siphon all of our resources, or a vast majority of them, into an occupying force of poor communities of color to criminalize, throw them in jail, murder them, and profit off of it. Everyone up here is profiting off of this slave patrol occupying colonial system. And it is utterly shameful. And I am just appalled right now that I'm being thrown up here to speak about another death of somebody that I do not know, but I do know. Because this is someone clearly a victim, once again, of racialized patrolling, policing, profiling, potentially surveillance. An officer who, once again, probably feared his life and had to pull the trigger because a dark-skinned body was considered a threat to him.
So just for the record, in terms of the information that you have, just about every week we go into closed session to adjudicate confidential personnel matters, of which this is one. This commission about a year and a half ago expanded the information that was available to the public prior to the adjudication. It used to just have the number. Now we have the involved party, so you could track which case it was. After we, in closed session, adjudicate the matter, there are two pieces of information that will be available to the public. There's the redacted department's report, which is publicly available, and there is the Inspector General's independent analysis and report, which is also publicly available. And of course, you're welcome to read either one of those documents, and if you have any thoughts on them, feel free to comment on them in public comment period at any one of our meetings.
Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker, Mr. Novick, followed by Michael Williams.
Is the mic on? Yeah. Okay, so I got here about a minute too late to give you a public comment during public comment period, but I think it's outrageous that you canceled your regular meeting and scheduled 2 special sessions, neither of which have any business except for closed session material. So I do have an additional comment card in for your last agenda item, which is adjournment, which is a piece of your business, and I'm going to comment on it. On this one, I want to point out the coding. OIS number 08916 means that in 2016, there were at least 89 shootings by the LAPD. This is the 89th officer-involved shooting in that year. You're a year behind. You have 2 police officers involved. I'm curious if you, in the course of your weekly, as you pointed out, executive sessions about these constant shootings and repeated killings by LAPD, ever consider the question of policy, which is your responsibility over and above individual acts by individual officers. How many officers have been involved in those 89 shootings over the course of 2016? How many of those officers were involved in more than one shooting over 2016? How many deaths is that man responsible for? Chief Charlie Beck, the head of the most murderous police department in the country. Those are the kinds of things you should be dealing with, and you should be dealing with it in public. You should come back out with policy recommendations for transforming or eliminating this police department because of its sorry record. So I'm asking you again today, have you invited any members of the family of E.D. Newsom Jr. to come and give testimony to you before you consider this question? If you have a judicial consideration of somebody who's convicted under the Victims' Bill of Rights, the victims of crimes are entitled to come and testify. If somebody's going to be released from prison, the victims can come and testify. You have a responsibility to listen to Mr. Newsom if you're still alive, I don't know. And you have a responsibility to listen to his family members before you decide how you're going to adjudicate this thing, not just to a redacted report from the police department covering its own ass.
Michael Williams, followed by Hamid Khan.
So what is this case? Because I literally looked up every possible Google search on E.D. Newsom Jr. and nothing came up. So what is the secret about this case that you had a special meeting in the afternoon to have this decision? What are you covering up? Who is this person? As everybody's come up and said, we don't know this person's race. We don't know this person's we don't even know this person's gender, really. We don't know anything about this person. And you guys are having a special meeting at 3 p.m. to discuss whether or not the officer who shot this person is guilty, and you haven't released any information to the public? Have you reached out to this person's family? Do you know who this person is? Like, what is this? Like, seriously.
The family liaisons have absolutely reached out to the person.
Okay, family liaison has been reached out to. What is this case, though?
No,
because why is it having it at 3 p.m., a special meeting at 3 p.m.?
We're having a special meeting today because we have statutory requirements to deal with items, and we're not having the meeting tomorrow because that meeting's devoted to interviewing candidates to replace our Inspector General. So it's a timing issue. That's what's happened for this week. It's
Why
not-
is there no?
There was nothing. It was nothing more than
Okay,
a
so
calendaring
why is there no
issue.
information about this person released? There is no news report. There is no police report. There is nothing on this person, this officer involved shooting, on any access, public access anywhere.
And I think that what Commissioner Johnson was referring to before, adequate or not, what's on our agenda relative to this OIS is the same thing that's on our agenda relative to every OIS we consider in the same order. They're all this way.
They're not all this way.
No, I understand. I'm not debating that issue as to whether it's
Not always
adequate
this way
or not.
because
I'm
there,
simply saying
every
that
other
this is-
police officer involved shooting has had some kind of information attached, whether it's a police report, a news report, something has been attached to it that gives information about what the incident was so that the public can know what it is. Why is this different?
I don't think there were any news reports about this, Mr. Sibley. Were there any about this, officer? So,
Right.
So again,
That's thank you for repeating what I just said. Thank you.
No, but again, it's not that that we're withholding it. I mean, there's nothing to attach.
There is no press release. I literally looked it up. You can't tell me there's a press release when I looked up everything I could
encourage you-
possibly find on this person.
I encourage you to read both the Inspector General's report after it is made available and the Chief's report after it's made available, and our decision, which is obviously public, and come back with any concerns that you have.
How can we know? You already decided on it.
We have not. We're after once we.
don't know anything about it, so how are we supposed to know anything or comment on it when we don't know anything about it? And there is no press release. There is nothing on this. It seems very suspicious to me. It seems really suspicious that this is a special meeting. All of a sudden, we gotta have a special meeting about something that has no information.
Next speaker, please.
The next speaker, Hamid Khan, followed by Laura Smith and Melina Abdullah.
People in their own personal lives.
Are you addressing the commission, sir? Because I can't hear you if you don't speak into the microphone.
It's on.
The microphone's on.
It's on.
So if you're going to, yeah, I'll start it. If you're
it
going to
was
address the
on. The
commission.
mic
yeah.
was on.
You weren't speaking into the mic, so they couldn't hear you.
All right.
That's better.
So I was laughing because how pathetic this thing, Cynthia McLean Bell.
You guys don't have your mics on, Steve.
Start my time again, please.
Jesus.
Yeah, start it again. Okay, speak into the mic. now.
So these are lawyers. These are developers. These are, just pretty well off and supposedly have a lot of privilege, class privilege, race privilege, institutional privileges too. Cynthia McLean Hill spoke about statutory issues, that we are bound by statutory requirements to hold these meetings. I think as we are speaking about what happened with E.D. Newsom Jr., what is missing in this debate is that when they are going to go into this closed-door meeting, what does that investigation look like? Does anybody know? What questions do they ask? How much do they know about the system and the program that traps, traces, tracks, and stalks people and murders them? Did Newsom have a chronic offender bulletin on him? Was Newsom ever in a gang database? There was a suspicious activity report filed on Newsom. Did Newsom have videotape through the trapwire technology? Was Newsom's phone being followed through Stingray technology? Did Newsom have any information through the CC closed circuit television? And we are trying to draw this landscape because I bet you none of them up there has any idea what we are talking about. Because not only are these investigations in secret, but the methodology is in secret as well. And if the methodology is in secret, and if the methodology is a blank page, and if there's a policy where justifiable homicide is a policy, where murder by police is legal, then, they will always find these shootings in policy. So I think this is where we also need to be challenging them. Just this year already, LAPD has had 38 officer-involved shooting according to their own record, the way they have listed that, right? This year, as of yesterday, 1,126 people have been murdered by police.
Next speaker, please.
The next speaker, please, Laura Smith, followed by Melina.
Laura Smith, please.
Laura
Laura
Smith.
Smith. Welcome.
I appreciate that, and I would wish that welcome would be given to everyone who speaks. I think that's interesting that that's given to me. Yeah, as a white person who's fairly new here. A quick note about the scheduling, in the sense that statutory limitations, that's nothing that would be coming up at the last minute, and I don't also understand why interviews for a candidate would need to be suddenly tomorrow morning at the last minute. It seems like that it also doesn't make sense. Just flagging that. I am not pretending to be as eloquent as a lot of other people, nor have I had a chance to actually prepare remarks because I learned about this meeting recently. And this speaks to what some other folks have said, demanding that these meetings be more accessible. Neither of these two things seems like a last-minute arrangement that should have come up now. I would just like to say one thing. I did have a chance to look at the website. I've noticed that a lot of reports that should have been posted over the last couple of years have actually not been posted. And given that, I'm not sure how familiar this board may be with what is on the website. So I just would like to read this regarding the function and role of this commission, just so we all can hear it again. We all should be familiar, but the commissioner's concerns are reflective of the community at large, and their priorities include implementing recommended reforms, improving service to the public by the department, end quote. As far as I can see, there is not even a pretense in the response to be responding to the community, and that's deeply concerning.
The next
speaker,
speaker,
please.
Melina Abdullah, followed by Lena Casey and Gina Viola.
Like Michael, I also looked up this case. I tried to find Edie Newsome. I Googled it. I looked for the press releases that are out for the majority of the officer-involved shootings. It is not posted. So even if there was one issued, it's nowhere available on the internet. We don't know if Edie Newsome is alive or dead. I keep asking you, is the person alive? And nobody even has the decency to respond. When we talk about the notification of families, there is only one case in which we confirmed with the family that they were notified, and that's after we made a big deal about them not notifying the other families. That next week, that case.
Hold her time, please. Gentlemen, please don't disrupt the meeting. There's time for speaker cards over anyway. Go ahead.
Okay, so I lost like 30 seconds. It kept ticking.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Okay. So we know of only one case where families have been notified. Most of the time, your so-called family liaison does not reach out to families. And we've confirmed this with many, many families that they have never been notified by your family liaison. They are generally notified by us as activists and organizers. Black Lives Matter and other groups reach out to the families and let them know that their loved ones are on the agenda. We couldn't even do that in this case because we couldn't find any information about Edie Newsome. So we couldn't do the work that your folks are not doing because there was no information available on the internet nor a press release, which Lion Charlie Beck says is available. It is not. You can go to the website yourself and see that it's not available. The other thing is we keep quoting your statistics to you that there have been 38 officer-involved shootings. I don't know how many of you read the Harvard study that was just released this week that shows that there are misclassifications in about half of the officer-involved shootings. So almost half the time when police kill people, they don't attribute it to police. And so this 1,100 number that Hamid Khan gave about last year's police killings nationally, there's actually almost double that. And so we need to think about what's happening here. We know LAPD has a record of fudging its statistics. And so you as the police commission that's supposed to be representing us, that's supposed to be representing a civilian body, it's your duty.
Next speaker, please.
The next speaker, Lena Casey. The next speaker, please, Lena Casey.
Is this the last?
Is Lena Casey here?
Is this the last speaker?
She's
No,
she's
sir.
part
Lena
of our
Casey
commission
and Gina
staff
Viola.
taking Mr.
Okay.
Tiefen's place for this afternoon.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Lena. I come to you as an attorney. I come to you as someone who worked in two prosecutors' offices during my time in law school alongside officers, all trying to work toward the same thing. While I was in law school, I also worked on the defense side of things just to see how everything worked. And what I noticed is that after a few months of doing prosecutor work, I was brought to tears. I was brought to tears by how differently insiders and outsiders were treated. When I worked in the prosecutor's office, I wore a badge like this, and it showed that I was an insider. So people would call me darling, they would call me sweetheart, they would listen to what I thought about cases. If I said something was unfair, they would say, that's interesting that you think that. But when I went to the same courthouse, wearing the same suit, but I was there on a case showing support of a Muslim man who was being prosecuted. The deputies didn't even make eye contact with me when I was asking for directions to the courthouse. And when I came in here today and asked for a speaker card, I was told that speaker time was closed. It wasn't until someone from the audience mentioned that there were 2 items and that I could speak on the second item that I went to grab a speaker card. That was kind of late, and I only had time to write down my first name. So I'd like to ask you, how did you know that my last name was Casey?
It says Lena Casey.
Okay, I
on the
had
card.
and it's spelled K-A-I.
K-I-S-E-Y.
Okay, there's time. All right, I'm glad, because as I recall, I only had time to write Lena and throw it up, and the guy said, the young man said that I had to at least write that I was on topic number 2. But I just want to remind you that you're humans, just like the people who are here trying to talk to you. When we asked you to remember the mothers and sons and family members who have been lost during this holiday.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Gina Fiola.
I'm nervous. I'm angry. I'm here because I'm exhausted. And I'm exhausted from watching black and brown people get the shaft in this city day after day. And the only reason I can be exhausted is because I'm white. And I can take a break from it from time to time. They cannot. We cannot. None of us can. This is ridiculous, okay? Police in this country, ridiculous. LA needs to lead the way on police reform. We are begging you week after week. We're coming every week to tell you what's happening because I'm not sure any of you know. When's the last time any of you went to the inner city? When's the last time any of you were anywhere on these streets where this stuff is occurring? Believe me, go spend the day like I have with my mentees or with other people in the inner city. I want to burn it down. It's broken. Please lead the way. The country is looking to LA for you to lead the way. Police reform.
And there are no other public comments cards on this item, sir? Those cards came in late. Wayne from Encino and Mr. Herman. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, adjourn. I'm sorry. Okay, the Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item numbers 5A1 in accordance to Government Code 54957.
Excuse me, I put in a comment card for adjournment. That's an agenda item. You don't have a number on it, but it requires a vote. Robert's Rules of Order, you need to make a motion to adjourn. It's business. I want to ask you to adjourn this meeting to a meeting in the evening.
We're not adjourning. We'll be back. So you can come back later, and then we'll adjourn.
Well, I read your lips earlier when you were talking to my officer over there. It's all right. It's nothing personal. You're entitled to your opinion.